Hello, tremendous fans. Today is one of my very favorite days. You know what I'm about to say. It is new release day, and I could not be more excited about who I have as my guest, new aspiring author, Arthur C. Woods. Arthur, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Thank you. You already know this, but I have to tell your audience. I love your name because it reminds me of Indiana Jones and Dr. Jones. So it's yeah, it's an honor.
Well, I am so glad you said that because I got to tell you, at least 30% of the reason that I did want to get a PhD, there were many more highbrow reasons, but one of them was as a huge fan of Harrison Ford, all things Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I did
Yes.
aspire to be Dr. Jones. And
Yes.
so the fact when you said that, I was like, he actually got it because most people don't. But thank you,
Love it.
Arthur. And let me tell you to our listeners out there. So Arthur is another Central Pennsylvania, a fellow fan. I have known him for many, many years, but he has a book coming out, and you're going to be so excited to hear about this, called Spark, sound familiar? For emerging leaders. And the tagline is for teens who want to make a difference. And you heard that right, listeners out there. I get so many of you that were reading up as teens and have reached out to me and said, Tracey, you got great stuff. What do you got for teens? Well, this is it. This is going to really set the bar for your emerging leaders. So, Arthur, I want to take our listeners back to the very beginning. And this was now it's probably 2.5 years ago, I think. But about 2.5 years ago, you reached out to me and shared with
Yeah.
me a request that actually started this formal collaboration. We knew each other, we were fans of each other, but tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got the opportunity to see you speak in person on the Spark material based on the book that you had released. And I took tons of notes that day. And I'm writing and I'm applying it to myself. But as a good coach, as a good speaker, as a good trainer, I'm also figuring out how could I help apply this to other people.
Hmm.
And so after I listened to your speech, uh, I got the book. I read through that in almost no time as well and then went to your site and saw that you had a course called Spark. And I was like, well, let me take the Spark course. So between hearing you speak on the content, reading the content, taking the course on the content, number one, it was very impactful for me. But then I reached out and I was like, Tracey, is there any way we could talk about collaborating and providing the Spark material for teenagers in a context that is perfect for them. And you and I have been kind of going back and forth now the past couple years, and it's been a long journey. In some ways, it's been a short journey, but it's incredible that here we are with a brand new book based on your original content, your original Spark content.
Thank you, Arthur. And I love it because it wasn't that it was always a great idea. I was like, oh my gosh. And Arthur, tell our listeners why you're focused on the teen audience, that was the spark behind your desire to bring it to this very unique subset of emerging leaders, because we are everybody talking about, Gen Z and now Gen A, the generation behind them, which is really who you're leading to. Why them?
Right. Well, first of all, my background is from student ministry. That's where my degrees came from. The majority of my vocational and ministry experience comes from student ministry and working with teenagers. So I have a bent toward them to begin with. So anytime I'm taking content in that I think could be relevant for other people, I'm usually thinking if this could be relevant for teenagers. And especially in today's crazy world that we're living in, or more specifically, that the teenagers are living in, the spark concepts, and I'm sure we'll kind of go through some of them over the course of our discussion today. The spark concepts are highly relevant to what the teenagers are going through today, not just us adults.
And you hit the nail on the head. We right away said this is applicable because truth is timeless, right? You said it, you just have to contextualize it.
Right.
I can remember reading How to Win Friends and Influence People and the Power of
Yes.
Positive Thinking. I think when I was 9 or 10. So, it's always that, but it was a matter of timing because there was stuff on my plate that I was doing and we always knew it was going to happen. But like you said, when we kicked it off and said, now's the time, we kind of had the resources to do it and the direction. So, Arthur, walk us through what Spark for emerging leaders is all about, and what can teens expect as they open this book?
Sure. Well, it's based, as I already said, on your original source material, the Spark framework. Should we talk about that now,
Absolutely.
or
Go ahead
hold
and
off a
tell them
little
what the spark
hold off a
construct
little
is.
bit? Okay, sure.
Mhm.
So the Spark framework is singularity, persistence, advocates, resources, and knowledge. And we unpack all five of those things over the course of the book in a context that is relevant for teenagers. So, for example, my probably my favorite of the 5 points is singularity. What's that singular focus that as an individual, as a teenager, we can really begin to train in on, that we can say, this is the thing that I want to do. This is who I want to be. This is who God is calling me to be. This is very singular. And not that as a teenager, you have to have all of that figured out. Of course you don't. But there's so many different things being thrown at teenagers today. All the different things that you can do, all the things you can say yes to. They're being attacked from like a million different direction. What if they took some time to just say, what's that thing right now in this season of life that needs to be most important? And that's singularity right there. And that of the five, I think that's such a good starting point to just, before we talk about all the other stuff, let's just focus in and answer the question, what are we talking about?
Absolutely. And it's so important that you brought that up with the five essentials and singularity, because even at that age you can really start dialing in. And I coach
Yeah,
Spark as a coach. I'm a coach as well as you, and I take adults through it.
yeah,
But S is your vision. It's what you're meant to do, and everything builds off of that, because you can't go on to persistence unless you know what you're working on, because
exactly.
you get as frustrated as a teen as you do as an adult or as somebody in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. So we're constantly going back to our vision, our core values, and you unpack that. So you said that was the fun that you liked. What was the most challenging out of the SPARK for you to write?
That's an easy question for me to answer. It's actually the second letter, P, persistence.
Yeah.
That is, boy, that is tough.
Mm.
When life gets tough, what does it look like to persist? When you fail, what does it look like to persist? When you're overwhelmed, when you're depressed, when you're anxious, when your parents aren't happy with you, when your grades aren't good, when you're not doing well in sports, and on and on and on, what does it look like to persist toward your singularity? It's a very simple concept, but the putting that into practice is so difficult, not just for teenagers, but certainly for me as an adult as well, to say, okay, I know what I want to do. I know who I want to be. I know what God is calling me to do. I've got my singularity locked in. I'm ready to go. And then when it gets hard, what does it look like for me to persist? So I'll be honest, that's probably the one that I need to remind myself of the most. Um,
It's the
in fact,
same for adults, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
the singularity gets you all excited, but then, and no one can do it for you. So it's all about, the habits that you develop, and not only in school or what you want to do, but sports and working, a job or volunteering or taking care of your siblings or whatever. It's all
yeah.
about those habits. So you also have this incredible, great tone throughout the book. You're a coach, but you're kind of like a big brother combined. How did you kind of strike that balance, other than you're like super cool, but tell me about your author's voice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the content we're talking about is serious. It's not a joke. It's very valuable. If these teenagers take it seriously, it has the chance to absolutely transform their lives. But I also didn't want to take myself too seriously throughout this whole thing. So there are several moments where I'm just kind of going off on tangents where the reader might be wondering, what is Arthur talking about? Right? Is he has he lost it a little bit? And the answer is, yeah, maybe I did lose it a little bit. But then I quickly come back, and you and your editing team also did a good job to make sure that my tangents didn't go too far. And then I like just more of a conversational
Mhm.
type writing, where even though I'm writing it and no one can give me immediate feedback, there's a lot of questions that I'm asking throughout the book, and trying to really get the reader to think, not just learn information. Well, that's part of it. I want the teenagers to learn this framework, But more than that, I want them to figure out, how do I apply this to my life? I
Mhm.
want them to think. So that was kind of the tone that I tried to set throughout the book.
Well, you did a great job with it. And the other thing that you did, we always hear about the power of stories, but then, and that's captivating. Stories are great. But then we also hear about a practical application.
Yeah,
And if you cannot take what you have read and apply it within 72 hours, it's evaporated. That's why if you don't write down when you're sitting listening to a speaker or pastor, you're going to be like, what was that? I mean, so what I love is each chapter you start with a very specific real world. I mean, I'm sure they were loosely based on teens you coached.
they
But
were.
you go through each of the five and you set a story about, hey, you're not the only teen going through this, feeling like you're all alone and you don't have anybody in your corner. And you
Right.
take them through that, but then throughout the chapter, you have ways, okay, let's break it down. So let's really take stock of who's in your corner. What resources do you have? Can you unpack maybe one of those stories that was especially uh, meaningful to you, like maybe you saw in teens or seem to see a lot of?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'll stay on the persistence chapter for just a moment. The chapter starts off with a story about a young man, and off the top of my head, I can't think of his name. But as you correctly deduced, these are loosely inspired on real life stories of students that I have known over the years. But there's a young man who was just frustrated with his homework, and he goes on a walk with his dad, and his dad tells him a story about the time that he wanted to learn to play the guitar, and he gave it some time, and it wasn't working, and he got frustrated, and he gave up for a while until someone said, "Hey, pick that guitar up and stick with it." And then he started practicing just 10 minutes a day, over and over and over and over again. And over time, he became an excellent guitar player. And so each chapter starts with a story that hopefully is relatable to the teenager that will be reading it. In fact, I even give the example in that persistence chapter about the fact that there were times, and I hope I can tell you this, Tracey, there were times I did not want to write this book. There were, I know, shocker. Now, don't get me wrong. Broadly speaking, I very much wanted to write this book, and I'm
I
so
know.
glad that it's coming up. But there were those days where I had blocked out time to write, and I'm like, I don't feel like writing right
I
now,
know.
or I don't know what to write, or who am I to write this book, and all those limiting beliefs that come in, and the idea being that I persisted,
Mhm.
I persisted, and I persisted, and the fact that a teenager is going to be reading this book is in part because I persisted.
Mhm.
And that's not, I could also tell you plenty of stories where I didn't persist and things didn't go well. So that's not a brag on my part. That's just an example of where persistence, even in my life, paid off. And I'm so glad that it did.
hmm And then, like I said, he has spaces for teens. You guys, emerging leaders, can write your thoughts down or
Yeah.
your notes. I mean, he has places where you can answer questions because we want you to dog ear, highlight, scribble all over this. And Arthur, I'm going to talk about advocates. The A in Spark is for advocates. So these are, S and P, singularity, persistence. These are what the teen brings,
Yeah.
what God has gifted them to do. And again, I think it goes without saying, you guys have both heard our background. Our worldview is we are created in Christ's image. And so we
Yes.
really, this is for anybody of any faith paradigm to read, but especially the Imago Dei, the spark was put into us. So that we talk about what are you divinely ordained or anointed to do, that only you can do the work. But advocates, and I can remember advocates come to you externally. There's parts that you bring to the table, and then advocates is one of the things that has to be brought to you. And
Yeah.
as a teen, I always had adults that I really looked up to and admired. And I love that you really talk in the book about it's a real rallying cry for mentorship. So
Yeah.
can you share? Because I think sometimes it's like, oh, but then there's the other side of I'm just a teen and they're adults. And it's kind of like, no, 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 no. They were you like 10 years ago
Yep.
or 50 years, but they were still you. And so can you talk about how this is really a rallying cry for mentorship? Because the sooner as a teen, you hitch your wagon to these people, the smoother sailing you're going to have it.
Yeah, that's 100%. So I'm a coach as well, and I work with a lot of adults, but I also work with a lot of teenagers on a one-on-one coaching. And while the idea of advocates isn't necessarily exclusive to professional coaching, that's just one possibility. an advocate is really who are those trusted, wise, experienced adults in your life that you know if you spend more time with this person, it's going to help you become who you want to be. So hopefully most teenagers, the first adults that come into their mind are their parents, sure, or their legal guardians or whatever their family dynamic is. But are there teachers, are there adult friends of the family, are there family members, are there people at church, at school, your coach on a sports team, or like even in my case, a professional coach that can really step you through, you know, helping you become who you want to be. It's how do you surround yourself? How do you come in
Yes.
proximity of people who are going to be great for you? Be really strategic about how you're crafting your relational world to help you become who you want to be. And I'll
Mhm.
be honest, when I was a teenager, that was the last thing on my mind. And I surrounded myself with some people who were not helping me become who I wanted to be. And as a result, I became kind of the opposite of who I wanted to be. Thankfully, the Lord brought me out of that, and I recognize the importance of having advocates in your life that really can help you and mentor you and guide you and coach you. So it's a hugely important part of the Spark framework.
Well, and you talk about that, everything, we have free will. So to choose an advocate is your choice, or
Yeah.
not to choose an advocate. To choose a good advocate is your choice. Or as you said, you talk about the flip side. Somebody's going to come in and have an influence on your life.
Yep.
And I teach leadership, and very often when I teach about leaders finding their right followers and followers resonating with their leader, I take them back to when they were between 5, 6, and 7. Who did it for you? Whoops, excuse me. Sorry about that. Who is the best person that you had that really made an impact on you? And that starts at about from 5 years of age and really is in the formative years of your teens. So I'm so glad you talked
Yeah.
about that. There are not all advocates are created equal, and we need to be very intentional
No.
about who we let in.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So one of the other things, and I'm making sure this, well, I can't believe I did that. That phone went off. Real world problems. So one of the things that I'm going to tell the parents are like, oh my gosh, my teen's going to be reading this book. Because Arthur wrote this book, he would hand me these chapters. And next, we will talk about in another interview, we have a companion piece. We have Spark, Keeper of the Flame for Emerging Leaders. For parents, this is the companion book for parents, mentors, and guardians. Okay. Because remember, those advocates, resources, and the knowledge, that is for the adults in their life. So Arthur did a phenomenal job. He would write the chapter for the teens, and then he'd throw it over to me where I would take Spark, which was kind of more overarching for adults. And we really, based on what he gave me, honed this down and say, okay, here's what your teen is going through. Here is how that spark that has been lit, you can just preserve that beautiful flame and provide them with guidance when they need it, provide them with latitude to let them identify and form their own sense of self and everything in between. So Arthur, my book, which is coming out next, could not have happened without your foundation.
Well, I appreciate that, and I love that we did the companion book. I love that you did the companion book because I'm a big proponent of parents being the primary influence of their children. And you might be listening to thinking like, well, obviously, Arthur, that's
Mm-mm.
the case. But in today's day and age, that's no longer obvious. And I want to write a book, yes, for teenagers, but I love the idea that there's a second book that goes right along with it that empowers parents to go through the material with their teenager because you and I, Tracey, only have a certain amount of influence over the people that read our books and engage with our content. A mom, a dad, a grandparent, whatever the case may be, they're the people that really get to pour into the lives of their teenagers, and they're the people that should be pouring into the lives of their teenagers the most. Yes, we want the advocates to come in alongside, but it's the parents, it's the legal guardian that really is there to help a teenager become who they want to be.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's biblical too.
Yeah.
I mean, these are a gift to you, and the parent is the first line. And so we're if we're telling parents, well, no, it's up to the government, it's up to the school, or it's up to their first job. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
No, they're influences, but you are the first where the rubber meets the road as far as that. And that is a sacred duty. And there have been many forces out there trying to strip that
Yep.
God-given right away. Absolutely not. So we want to empower parents, guardians, mentor. And again, I wrote it as a parent's guide. Guess what? I don't have any biological children, but I have hundreds, if not thousands, of spiritual children that have come to
Yeah.
me that other people have allowed me to pour into. And so anybody that's touching the life of a young person, you are part of that beautiful network and community, first and foremost, alongside with that parent, to build up that emerging leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because that, yeah, this is for the parents as well as for the teens, because the more you can keep that flame, because as you said, Arthur, the world is doing everything it can
Yeah.
to confuse, to
Yep.
darken, to douse, to destroy,
Oh,
and it's only going to get
alliteration.
worse. Yeah.
Great alliteration there.
Oh, well, thank you.
Dark. Can you say that again? I don't know if you could. Can you
Dark,
remember?
destroy. Well, I'm glad I'm recording.
Wow. Yeah. That go back and look at that.
Depress, despise, demote.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah, yeah,
That'll
yeah.
preach. Yeah.
Denigrate,
I gotta
yeah.
put that
And
together.
right, because this is the future bright spirits of the world. And
Yeah.
no, no, we are not going to have it. We are here when we are here for that. And to walk alongside them and to let them know, as I think every teen, I can remember as a teen just thinking, what am I supposed to be doing? And I want to feel like I'm special in God's eyes. And that's what Spark for Emerging Leaders lets them know. You may not see it right now, but it's in you. We just have
Yeah.
to unfold it. You don't got to
Yep.
go find it. It's already intrinsically in you. You just have to walk with the right people and take time with God and do the work, and the path will unfold.
Yep.
And that's
And
pretty powerful.
you're not too young. That's part of the fundamental principle of this book is you're not too young to think of yourself as a leader. You're not too young to have influence. You're not too young to start honing in on your singularity. The Apostle Paul told Timothy, "Don't let people look down on you because you are young." And I say to whoever chooses to read this book, we do not look down on you for you because you are young. Please don't look down on yourself because you are young.
Oh,
The
so
stuff that
beautiful.
is in this book can transform your lives if you let it.
I do. And I love it for teens. It gives you like a construct. A lot of times you're like, oh, I know adults know how to do this, but how am I going to figure out? It's 5 steps.
Yep.
And Arthur takes you through each one of them. And yes, it's a constant work in progress. But if you focus on these and go through the questions that he has and get with your parent, mentor, or guardian and have the dialogue, that'll help you out. So Arthur, what is the legacy that you hope Spark for Emerging Leaders will create?
I I would love if it's just so this is my first book. So I've never experienced someone coming to me years later to say, you know what, I read Spark for Emerging Leaders 5 years ago and it transformed my life. And here's how. I don't say that as because I want that affirmation. I want to, feed my ego. I want to know that the book didn't just go out there, that the book didn't just get purchased by some people, but that somebody read it, that it somebody allowed it to change their life. And then hopefully at some point I get to connect with that person who says, here's when I decided my singularity as a result of reading Spark for Emerging Leaders. Thank you, God. That's
Doesn't get
I'll
any
take
better.
that. Yeah, I'll take that all day long. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, Arthur, if you could speak to, maybe there's a 15, 16-year-old listening right now, if you could speak directly to maybe a leader that keeps thinking, well, Spark, that's probably for other kids, but maybe not for me, that maybe is a little bit doubting in their potential, what would you say to them?
Right. Well, one of the ways that I and many others define leadership is nothing more than the presence of influence. And I know every single teenager out there has influence over someone, a sibling, a family member, someone at school, someone at home, someone in their part-time job, someone on the athletic field, whatever it is. You as a teenager have influence over people, and as a result, you are a leader because if leadership is influence and you have influence, ergo, you are a leader. So I want young people, I want that 15-year-old person who thinks that he or she is not a leader or that this book is for someone else. I want them to think, no, actually, I am a leader. I want to grow in my leadership. And maybe, just maybe, this book can help me do that.
Absolutely. So, Arthur, you are speaking. You have an event you said coming up. You're going to be out speaking to teen groups. Can you tell our listeners where, how people reach out to you and get a hold of you? And then we'll talk about when the book is coming out and where they can get it.
Sure. Well, that's one of the fun things about writing this book and working with you, Tracy, is I've had the opportunity now to get booked to speak on this content. So last month I was in New Jersey speaking to a group of teenagers. I did a 4-day student leadership course called Spark for Emerging Leaders. And then later this month I'll be heading down to Atlanta, Georgia, and doing a 2-day leadership conference for homeschool teenagers called Spark for Emerging Leaders. So it's content that not only it's not the kind of thing that I just wrote about it in a book and now I can kind of forget about it, but no, I'm actively getting to teach it. And if there's, one of your listeners says, oh, I would love for Arthur to come in and speak to our organization, speak to our homeschool co-op, our ministry, our student ministry, whatever it is, yeah, reach out. And I'd love to talk to you about that. And the best way is just to go to my website, arthurcwoods.com. Don't forget that middle initial, because there is another Arthur Woods speaker out there that, yeah, it's kind of
Oh,
confusing.
what? Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm going to call him up one day and say, do you know who I am? Because I know who you are. Have you ever Googled me? Because I've Googled you.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
love it. I love it. Well, Arthur, and for the listeners out there, we'll have Arthur's information in the show notes, and also when you get the book, you will see all his information is on the backside of that. And for our readers out there, you know, a tremendous leadership. We have a sweet spot for books. We don't want them to be 500 pages or sometimes. This is, I think, the teen version is 80 pages. You know, it's about the size of The Art of Tremendous. You know, which is about it's a smaller book, so you can get through it, get to the meat because we don't got a lot of time. And the companion parent book will be out as well too. We'll have that on another video going out. But Arthur, congratulations.
yeah,
I'm
thank
so thankful for your patience. I mean, there was a time where a year went by and then I'm like, and you were so patient about it. And I was dealing with, other things. And then when I finally said, okay, I think we can do this now, you were just right in there. And thank you for waiting for me to do it with you
yeah,
so we could have the two pieces because it could have gone out on its own. But like you said, it's parents and children. They're two sides of the same coin, and they're representative of
yeah,
the entity of the family. So why not have them read together and grow together and fall deeper in love with Christ and what He has for them? So,
yeah.
Arthur, I just can't thank you enough.
Love it. Yeah, thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome. And to our listeners out there, if you're watching this video, the book is out. So head on over to Amazon right now, get a copy. Be sure if you like it, leave Arthur a 5-star review. That's a big deal because that lets other people know about the book. And also, of course, we'll have it on Tremendous Leadership website. If you want to get this in bulk for your group, your camp, your organization, your homeschoolers, your schools, you just let us know. Reach out to tremendousleadership.com and we'll be more than happy to hook you up for that. And remember, as Charlie Tremendous Jones said, you'll be the same person 5 years from now, or the same teen 5 years from now that you are today, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. And no book better than Spark for Emerging Leaders. Remember the tagline: for teens who want to make a difference, and they will. Pick up your copy today. Again, Arthur, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tracy.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a tremendous rest of your day.